Good morning, men. My name is Pastor Carlos Malley. I am the discipleship pastor of the Circle Church of Alexandria, located in Alexandria, Louisiana, here for another episode of Manhood Monday. Today, I'm going to talk on the topic of reliability. And I'm going to come from Luke's Gospel, chapter 16, verses 10, New King James Version, if you're following along, or feel free to read whatever version that you have. And the word of God to the people of God says, "He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. And he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much." So yesterday morning, I had a long day. We had a memorial service to celebrate Correctional Workers Week. In the Federal Bureau of Prisons, we acknowledge and recognize the men and women who have paid the ultimate sacrifice while in the line of duty, working inside of an institution, a prison. And we honor several men and women over the course of the last 100 years or so that have paid the ultimate sacrifice in terms of what they do and their responsibilities. I probably overemphasize it with the church, and they probably clown me on it, but that's fine. What we do inside of, prison is very dangerous, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't pray, thank God when I walk in, thank God when I walk out, and but there are very tough days. I'm a supervisor in my position there, and like anyone, I get tired too. We have this term that we use called banging in, and what that essentially means that you're going to call in work and you're not going to come to work that day. And there are days when I too feel like calling in, right? But when I think about the word reliability, when I think about the platform and the responsibility that God has given me, not only at the prison, but at home, my wife and my children are relying on me to provide for them, to protect them, to make sure that we have food on the table, to make sure that our bills are paid, to make sure that I'm doing everything that I possibly can to sustain and protect my family. I think about the people that are relying on me at the job. I'm thinking about my senior executive staff that are relying on me to be the subject matter expert in religious services. I'm thinking about my staff chaplains and my assistants that are looking for me for wisdom and guidance and leadership. I think about all the inmates that God has called me to serve, that are looking for me for resources, maybe something that will cheer their day up, maybe something that will make that day much better for them. I think about my local church. I think about, how Pastor Smith is relying on me to help him. How the other members of our church and the other people that make up our leadership team are relying on me to be there to provide guidance and leadership and be an example. I think about how my little boys are relying on me to be their dad, how my little girl is relying on me to be an example of what all of them are looking for me to be an example of what a good husband and a good father looks like. Now, I've spoken enough about me. Let's think about you. What are you doing for the people around you, the places around you, and the platform that God has given you in order to make sure that the people around you feel like you can be relied upon? As men, I want to affirm us this morning, but I also want to hold us accountable that if you are out of line, if you aren't doing the things that you're supposed to do in terms of your business or profession, in terms of your responsibility as a husband, as a father, in terms of your responsibility as a good neighbor, as a friend, then you may want to do a self-evaluation on that. When we go back to the text and Luke's gospel is telling us he who is faithful with the least will also be faithful in much. I think about whenever God, whether it's through volunteerism or an actual position, when God blesses you with a platform, he's giving you the opportunity to properly steward that position. When Pastor Smith, when I first came to the Circle Church, he blessed me to become the outreach pastor. And then within a year, he said, hey, man, I really appreciate what you're doing, but I think being the discipleship pastor is more suited for you based on what you're doing and the gifts that you're sharing with the church. That's a blessing that he would think enough of me to say, hey, I think Los should be the discipleship pastor. So what am I going to do with that? I'm going to take that opportunity and I'm going to make the most of it. Because if you're faithful with the little, God will make you faithful in much. And that's really the story, I think, of all of our journeys. If we properly steward whatever God gives us and not solely looking at stewardship solely from a financial perspective, but looking at stewardship of everything, stewardship of relationships, stewardship of your marriage, stewardship of how you're raising your children, stewardship of everything. And this word reliability goes hand in hand with stewardship, because the more we can be relied upon, the more that God and man will entrust in us more responsibility. And responsibility is not always to be looked at as a bad thing, because it just simply means that God can trust you with something. And so this morning, men, and anybody who's listening, I want us to focus on this word called reliability, because when we can be relied upon, God can take the little and then he can make it so much more. But we certainly don't want to be like the person that God talks about in this text when he says, in the unjust is what the least is unjust is also in much. And so in other words, he's saying, if someone is not responsible and reliable upon the little, I can't trust them with much more. I often tell people that when they say, hey, I want a promotion, I want a raise. Are you properly stewarding what you currently have? Are you properly stewarding the position you currently have, the money you currently make? Because if you're not properly stewarding that, why would God give you more? So let us focus on being reliable this week to our families, to our communities, to our businesses, to our places of employment. And when we do that, and God can trust us with the little, then he can trust us with much more. I always want to end by saying, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. God bless.